My alarm goes off at 4:30 a.m. It always has. Not because I want it to, but because that's what single mothers do. We wake before the sun so we can be ready for everything. I don't hit snooze. I never have. There's a coffee maker downstairs that needs my attention, and a small cafe in downtown Missoula that doesn't run itself. I swing my legs out of bed, my feet hitting the cold hardwood floor, and I think the same thing I've been thinking for 22 years. Okay, Rebecca, you've got this. The house is quiet at this hour. It's mine, this quiet. Just me and the dark and the sound of my own breathing. I wash my face with water so cold it makes me gasp, brush my teeth, pull my hair into a bun that I've perfected over thousands of mornings. No makeup yet. Makeup comes later, after the rush, after I've already put in 2 hours of work. By 5:15 a.m., I'm at Rebecca's Cafe. That's what the sign says on the window, painted in my handwriting because I couldn't afford to hire someone. The cafe is small, really small. 12 tables, a counter with 8 stools, a kitchen in the back that's barely bigger than a bathroom. But it's mine. Every coffee cup, every wooden chair, every chipped plate that I refuse to throw away because I'm thrifty like that, it's all mine. I open the doors to the street and flip on the lights. The smell hits me, first coffee beans, butter from yesterday's pastries, the ghost of cinnamon from the rolls I made 3 days ago. I've never gotten tired of that smell. Even after 22 years, it feels like home. The first customers arrive at 5:45 a.m. They're always the same people. Frank, who works at the lumber mill and takes his coffee black. Margaret, who's been coming in for so long that I don't even have to ask anymore, just pour her a medium vanilla latte. The Kowalski brothers, who sit at the corner table and talk about nothing for 45 minutes before they leave. These are my people. The people who made my life possible. By 7 a.m., the cafe is full. The breakfast rush, parents on their way to work, teenagers grabbing coffee before school, construction workers fueling up before their shifts. I move between the tables like I'm dancing a choreography I've performed 10,000 times. Pour, smile, take the next order. Remember that Mrs. Chen likes her cappuccino with an extra shot, that Jacob always orders the blueberry muffin but pretends it's his first time. My son used to come down and help me before school. David. He was maybe 8 years old, and he'd stand on a milk crate behind the counter so he could reach the register. He'd punch in numbers with his whole hand, his tongue sticking out in concentration, and I'd watch him and think, this is it. This is what life is supposed to be. He's 19 now, tall, not a boy anymore. Somewhere between 17 and 18, he'd grown into someone who looked less like the child I raised and more like the man he was becoming. I watched it happen in increments so small I almost didn't notice until suddenly I did. His voice deepened, his shoulders broadened. He stopped needing me for the little things and started making his own coffee in the morning without asking. That's the thing about being a single mother that nobody tells you. It's not just the financial struggle, though God knows that's real. It's not just the exhaustion of doing it all alone, though that's real too. It's watching your child grow and knowing that every day he needs you a little bit less, and that's the whole point. You're supposed to raise them to leave you. But knowing that doesn't make it any easier when it happens. David's father left when he was 14 months old. I remember the morning perfectly. I'd gotten up to feed the baby, and my ex-husband was sitting at the kitchen table with a note, an actual note. I can't do this, it said. No explanation, no forwarding address. Just a man who'd decided that fatherhood wasn't for him, and a woman left holding a screaming infant at 6 in the morning. I was 22 years old. I had $847 in my bank account and a baby who depended on me for everything. I could have fallen apart. Some days, I wanted to. But instead, I did what I'd always done. I woke up at 4:30 a.m. and got to work. The cafe came later. First, there were the night shifts at the diner on the other side of town, then the job at the hospital doing intake paperwork. Somewhere in between, I took night classes to learn how to run a small business, and I saved every penny I could. I cut my hair myself. I bought David's clothes at Goodwill. I made birthday cakes from scratch because store-bought ones cost too much. And eventually, after years of saying no to everything, I said yes to this cafe. It wasn't glamorous. It still isn't. I work 12-hour days. My hands are perpetually stained with coffee, and my back hurts by the end of the week. But it's honest work, and it's given David a stable home, a good school, a life where he never had to wonder if we'd make rent. By 9 a.m., the breakfast rush is over. I wipe down the tables, restock the pastry case, and take a moment to breathe. This is my favorite part of the day, when the cafe transitions into its mid-morning lull. A few regulars nursing their second cups of coffee. A student working on a laptop. The world feels manageable at this hour. I'm thinking about what to prepare for lunch, maybe a tomato bisque. Definitely a fresh batch of sandwiches when the bell above the door chimes. It's David. He's still in his pajama pants and a hoodie, his hair sticking up in about 5 different directions. He looks like he just rolled out of bed, which he probably did. "Mom," he says, and there's something in his voice that makes me look up from the counter. "Can we talk for a minute?" I know that tone. It's the tone children use when they're about to tell you something big. I've heard it before. I'm failing chemistry. I got in a fight at school. I think I'm depressed. But something about the way he's holding himself today, a little taller, a little more nervous, tells me this is different. I pour him a cup of coffee the way he likes it. Half calf, extra cream, 1 sugar. I come around the counter and sit across from him at one of the small tables by the window. The morning light is streaming in, and I can see dust motes floating in the air between us. "What's going on, bud?" I ask. He takes a long sip of coffee, and then he tells me something that changes everything. "I met someone," he says, "and we're getting married." Emma walks into my cafe on a Tuesday afternoon in March, and I know immediately that she's going to change my life. Not because she's particularly striking, though she is beautiful in that understated way that some people are blonde hair, blue eyes, the kind of girl who looks like she stepped out of a catalog for Montana tourism. It's the way David looks at her that tells me everything I need to know. His entire face transforms. The corners of his mouth lift into a smile I've never seen before. His shoulders straighten. He becomes, in that single moment, a completely different version of himself. They're both sophomores at the University of Montana. I know this because David tells me the story over coffee the next morning, and he can barely contain his excitement as he talks. They met in a biology lab. She was his lab partner for a semester-long project about cellular respiration. He says the word respiration like it's the most important scientific concept ever discovered, and I bite my tongue to keep from smiling at his enthusiasm and wonder. For the next 3 months, David comes home less and less. He's always doing something with Emma. They're studying at the library until closing time. They're hiking up one of the trails outside of town, watching the sunset from some mountain vista. They're at a movie, at a restaurant, at her parents' house in one of the nicer neighborhoods where the lawns are manicured and the cars in the driveway cost more than I've made in 5 years combined. I don't mind. Not really. This is what's supposed to happen. Kids grow up, they fall in love, they build their own lives. I've always known this day would come. But knowing it theoretically and experiencing it in real time are 2 very different things entirely. One evening in June, David comes home and asks me to sit down. We're in the kitchen of our small house on the east side of Missoula. The sun is setting, painting everything in shades of gold and orange. He's nervous. I can tell because he keeps running his hand through his hair, a habit he's had since he was a kid. "Mom," he says, "Emma and I are getting engaged." I don't say anything for a moment. I'm processing. They're 19, both of them. They've been together for only 3 months, and they want to get married. In another life, I might have panicked. I might have launched into a speech about being young, about how 19 is too young, about how the world is big and there are so many people out there and why rush into anything. But I remember being 19. I remember thinking I was in love. I remember believing that feeling was enough to build a life on. It wasn't for me. My ex-husband and I were a disaster from the beginning. We were too young, too unprepared, too selfish to make it work. But that doesn't mean David and Emma are the same. Love is complicated. People are complicated. And I've spent 19 years raising my son to be thoughtful and kind and considerate. If he's making this choice, I have to trust that he's made it for the right reasons. "Tell me about her," I say instead of all the other things I could say. He does. He tells me that Emma is kind, that she listens, that when he talks about his fears and his dreams, she actually hears him instead of just waiting for her turn to speak. He tells me about the time she drove 2 hours to the coast to pick wildflowers, because he mentioned once that wildflowers made him think of his grandmother who passed away. He tells me that she wants to be a teacher, that she wants to have a big family someday, that she laughs at his terrible jokes even though they're not funny. "I love her, Mom," he says, and there are tears in his eyes. I know we're young, but I love her, and I don't want to wait. I reach across the table and take his hand. It's bigger than mine now, stronger, calloused from work. This is a man's hand, not a boy's. When did that happen? When did my baby become this? Okay, I say. Then we'll figure it out together. A week later, David shows me the ring. It's modest, a 1/4-carat diamond in a simple white gold band. He tells me he saved up from his job at Jiffy Lube, where he's been working since he was 17. 7 months of oil changes and tire rotations and coming home smelling like a garage floor and motor oil. 7 months of depositing every paycheck into a savings account because he had a plan. 7 months of sacrifice for a girl he loves. I'm so proud of him that I feel like my chest might actually burst open. We start planning. Emma and David want something small, maybe 50 people, just family and close friends. Nothing fancy, nothing expensive. They're thinking about having it at the park, outdoors, simple but beautiful. Maybe some wildflowers, the ones Emma loves. Maybe a picnic-style reception with food I make myself, with love in every bite. I offer to help. I talk about making the wedding cakes myself, about decorating with flowers from the local farmers market, about keeping costs down so that they're not starting their marriage in debt. David hugs me and says, "I knew you'd help, Mom. I knew you'd understand." But Emma's parents have very different ideas. They're nice people. I meet them for dinner at a steakhouse on the other side of town. Emma's father, Harrison Sterling, is a man in his late 50s with silver at his temples and the kind of confidence that comes from always having money. Emma's mother, Margaret, though everyone calls her Maggie, is softer around the edges. She smiles a lot and touches your arm when she talks to you. They order expensive wine. They talk about their business, something to do with real estate and development across Montana. They talk about their house, their vacation home in Jackson Hole, their plans for early retirement. The conversation flows smoothly, and I find myself relaxing a little, thinking maybe this will be okay. Then, near the end of the dinner, Harrison leans back in his chair and says, "We're so excited about this wedding, we're thinking we should really do it right." I think he's going to say something about helping with the costs. I'm already preparing my response, something gracious but firm about how David and Emma want to keep it simple and meaningful. Instead, he says, "We're thinking of having it at Reflection Bay. You know, the golf club outside of town? We know the manager personally. They do beautiful weddings there. And we're thinking we should really invite everyone. Make it an event. A proper celebration of family and business connections." The words hang in the air between us. That's very generous, I say carefully, but David and Emma had talked about keeping it small and intimate. Harrison smiles at me. It's not a warm smile. It's a smile that doesn't quite reach his eyes. Well, they're part of our family now, and we do things right in the Sterling family. We don't do small. I don't know what to say to that. I don't know how to explain that his idea of right and my son's idea of right might be very different things. So I smile back and I nod, and I tell myself that it will be fine. It's just a wedding. It doesn't really matter where it is or how many people are there. I'm wrong about that. The first time I see Harrison Sterling walk into my cafe, I know something is about to change. It's a Saturday morning in early July, just after the breakfast rush. The cafe is in that comfortable lull where most of the customers have finished their coffee and left for wherever they're going. Frank from the lumber mill is still at the counter, nursing his black coffee. Margaret is reading a book in the corner. The Kowalski brothers are arguing about something that sounds like it might be about fishing, though it could be about anything. They argue the same way whether they're discussing politics or the weather. I'm wiping down the espresso machine when the bell above the door chimes. He walks in wearing a steel gray sport coat, despite the fact that it's 75 degrees outside. His watch probably costs more than my car. His hair is perfectly styled, silver at the temples in a way that looks deliberate, like he's paid someone to make him look distinguished. He's probably in his late 50s, tall, the kind of man who takes up space without even trying. He moves through the cafe like he owns it. I know who he is before he even speaks. I've seen him in pictures on Emma's Instagram. David pointed him out once at a distance when we were driving through one of the nicer parts of town. But seeing him in person is different. He has a presence that photographs don't capture. It's something you feel rather than see. He approaches the counter, and I notice that he doesn't really look at me. He looks past me, like he's assessing the cafe itself, evaluating it the way someone evaluates a restaurant they're thinking about buying. He's not rude about it. It's just matter of fact. "I'll have a coffee," he says. "Just black. And make it a good one." It's such a small thing, that comment. Just a casual instruction. But there's something in the tone that makes it clear he's used to giving orders and having people follow them without question. I pour him a fresh cup of our best dark roast. I've been making coffee for 22 years, and I know how to make it good. I know exactly how to get the temperature right and the extraction perfect. He takes a sip and nods once, like he's confirming what he already suspected. "You must be Rebecca," he says, "David's mother." "I am," I say. "You're Harrison." He extends his hand across the counter, and I shake it. His grip is firm, the kind of handshake that's designed to communicate dominance and authority. My hands are stained with coffee and probably smell like espresso. His are manicured and smell like expensive cologne. "I wanted to meet you," he says, "since I'll be taking care of the wedding. Emma mentioned that you and David had some ideas about keeping it simple, but I think we can do better than that." The way he says taking care of bothers me. It's possessive, like the wedding is his to take care of, not David and Emma's. Like they're not capable of making decisions for themselves. "David seems excited about your plans," I say carefully. "He should be," Harrison says. He takes another sip of his coffee, and I notice he doesn't ask how I'm doing or seem interested in anything about me. I'm giving him and Emma an opportunity to have something really special, something memorable. Most kids their age don't get that kind of support. I think about saying that David and I have always managed fine on our own, that we don't need his support or his money or his ideas about what makes a wedding special, that we've survived harder things than planning a simple ceremony. But I don't say any of that. Instead, I smile and ask him if he wants anything else. "No," he says, "this is good. I'll probably be in here more often now that I'm involved in the wedding planning. I like to stay on top of things." He leaves a $5 tip on a $5 coffee, which I'm sure he thinks is generous, though it feels more like charity than anything else. Then he's gone. After that, I see him everywhere. He comes into the cafe 3 times a week. He sits at different tables, always watching, always evaluating. He brings his laptop and takes business calls about development projects and strip malls and property acquisitions in a loud voice. He talks like everyone in the cafe wants to hear about his business dealings. He wants people to know that he's important. But mostly, he comes to see David. The first time it happens, David comes home from a shift at Jiffy Lube, and Harrison is waiting for him in the cafe. I watch from behind the counter as Harrison stands up, shakes David's hand firmly, and says something that makes my son's face light up. I can't hear the words, but I can see the effect they have on him. It's like Harrison has flipped a switch inside my boy. Later, David tells me that Harrison offered to take him shopping. He said I need to look the part, David says, and there's something almost embarrassed about his tone, like he's ashamed of his old clothes. He said that if I'm going to be married to Emma, I need to dress like I understand what that means. The next week, David comes home with new clothes. Shirts from Nordstrom with little patterns on them. The kind of shirt that David would never have chosen for himself because his entire wardrobe philosophy since 7th grade has been simple. Does it come in gray? He's wearing jeans that look designer, shoes that probably cost more than a week's worth of groceries at my house. And he's wearing a watch, a Seiko that he tells me cost $430. $430 for a watch. Harrison gave it to me, he says when he sees me looking at it. He said it's an investment in looking professional. That's very generous, I say, and I mean it, but there's something about the gift that unsettles me deeply. It's not just a watch, it's a statement. It's Harrison marking his territory, making sure that everyone, including David, knows that he's the one providing now, that he's the one who matters. Over the next few weeks, I watch my son slowly transform. It's not dramatic. It's not like he wakes up one day and is a completely different person. It's subtle, incremental. He starts speaking differently, using vocabulary that sounds borrowed from Harrison. He talks about lifestyle choices and professional development and cultivating the right image, like he's reading from a script. He stops coming to the cafe in the mornings before work. When I ask him about it, he says that Harrison invited him to go to the gym before his Jiffy Lube shift. They lift weights together. They talk about business. David comes home with a new kind of exhaustion, not the healthy tiredness of honest labor, but the tired exhaustion of trying to become someone he's not. One night, I hear David on the phone in his room. He's talking to Emma about the seating chart for the wedding. I'm not trying to listen, but the walls in our house are thin, and his voice carries down the stairs. Yeah, I'll ask Dad about that, he says. Dad thinks we should put the extended family toward the back and keep the important people up front. What do you think? Does that make sense? I'm downstairs making dinner, and I have to stop what I'm doing. I have to put down the wooden spoon I'm holding because my hand is shaking. Dad. He called Harrison Dad. I don't say anything to David about hearing him call Harrison Dad. What would I say? Don't call him that? He's not your father? That would only hurt my son. And I've spent 19 years trying not to hurt him. So instead, I swallow the words and make dinner, and we eat together in a silence that feels heavy with all the things we're not saying. The wedding planning accelerates after that. Harrison shows up at my cafe with a leather binder filled with printed emails, contracts, and vendor agreements. He spreads them out on one of the tables like he's conducting a business transaction, which I suppose he is. He's conducting a transaction with my son's life. I've decided on the venue, he announces. Decides. Not suggested or proposed, but decided, like it's already done. Reflection Bay Golf Club. I've secured the date August 23rd. That gives us 2 months to plan properly. August. That's 3 months away. I was thinking next year, after David finishes school, after he and Emma have time to save some money. But no, Harrison has a timeline, and his timeline is the only one that matters. What about David and Emma? I ask. Have they seen the venue? They will, Harrison says. I'm taking David there on Saturday. Emma will come too, of course. But David needs to understand what real planning looks like. What real planning looks like. As if the planning David and I had done together, calling parks, pricing flowers, asking friends about their experiences, wasn't real. As if my son needed to be educated by a billionaire about how to do things correctly. The budget is $91,000, Harrison says. He says this casually, like he's talking about the weather. That should be sufficient for everything: venue, catering, flowers, photography, a band. Emma's mother is handling some of the smaller details, but the big decisions are mine. $91,000. I do the math in my head. That's 1 year and 8 months of my salary before taxes, before rent, before the $187 a month I'm still paying on David's braces from when he was 14 because I set up a payment plan that was apparently designed to outlive me. I've been saving for months, 11 months of putting away what I can, skipping the fancy coffee from the cafe, packing lunch instead of eating out, saying no to the girls when they want to go to happy hour. I've saved $3,400. I was going to offer it for the flowers. That's a lot of money, I say carefully. It's an investment in David's future, Harrison says. He closes his binder with a snap, and I don't do things halfway. The next week, I approach Harrison at the cafe. I've prepared what I'm going to say. I've practiced it in my head 100 times. I'd like to contribute toward the wedding, I tell him. I have $3,400 set aside. I'd like to help with the flowers. He's drinking his black coffee. He doesn't look up. That's sweet, Rebecca, he says. I appreciate the gesture. I really do. But the florist alone is $8,200. And honestly, we've got this handled. You should keep your money. You might need it. Might need it. Like I'm struggling. Like I'm barely getting by. Which is true. But he doesn't know that. He shouldn't know that. That's not information he should have about me. I want to contribute, I say again, trying to keep my voice steady. I know, he says. He finally looks up at me, and I'm telling you that you don't need to. David has a real family now. We'll take care of everything. A real family. I don't respond. I just turn around and walk away, and I feel my shoulders getting tighter with each step. Over the next few weeks, Harrison makes decision after decision about David's wedding. He chooses the caterer. He chooses the photographer. He chooses the flowers, $8,200 worth of flowers that will be dead in 4 days. He chooses the band. He chooses the menu without asking David what he likes to eat. I notice that David stops talking about the wedding altogether. When I ask him about it, he just says, "Harrison is handling it, Mom. It's fine." And the way he says it with a kind of resignation, like he's given up any hope of having input into his own life, breaks my heart. One afternoon, David comes into the cafe looking exhausted. He orders a coffee, half calf, extra cream, 1 sugar, and sits at the corner table like he's one of the regulars. I finish serving a customer and sit down across from him. "You okay, buddy?" I ask. He doesn't answer right away. He just stirs his coffee and stares into the cup like there are answers at the bottom. Emma and I were going to go to the beach for our honeymoon, he finally says. A small trip, just us. We'd save up and go next year after we finished school, but Harrison said we should go somewhere nice. Somewhere that matters. He mentioned Bora Bora. He said he'd cover it as a wedding gift. Bora Bora. Paradise. A place that costs money I can't even imagine. That's generous, I say, even though I'm not sure anymore what that word means, coming from Harrison Sterling. I know, David says, and then he says something that makes my breath catch, but it doesn't feel like ours anymore, Mom. None of it does. The wedding, the honeymoon, the future, it all feels like his. Like he's throwing us a party and we just happen to be there. I reach across the table and squeeze his hand. Then you need to talk to him. You need to tell him how you feel. But I can see in my son's eyes that he won't. He's 19 years old and already learning one of life's hardest lessons. Sometimes, in order to keep peace, you have to give up what you want. Sometimes, the price of acceptance is your own voice. And I realize, in that moment, that I've failed him. Somehow, in raising him to be kind and respectful, I've also raised him to be passive, to accept whatever is done to him without protest. I won't make the same mistake with myself. Summer bleeds into late July, and I watch my son disappear. It's not a dramatic disappearance. He's still physically present. He still comes home, still eats dinner with me sometimes, still sleeps in his childhood bedroom. But the boy I raised, the one who helped me at the cafe and laughed at my terrible jokes and talked to me about his dreams, that boy is becoming a stranger. It happens in small increments. A new shirt appears in his closet, then another. The comfortable gray hoodie he's worn for 3 years mysteriously vanishes. His jeans are replaced with designer brands that fit differently, that make him stand straighter, that seem to change the way he moves through the world. I try not to notice, I really do, but mothers notice everything. One morning, I'm making coffee in the kitchen when David comes downstairs wearing a button-up shirt that Harrison bought him. It's navy blue with tiny white stripes and a subtle pattern that probably has a name I don't know. On David, who has spent his entire life in t-shirts and hoodies, it looks wrong. It looks like he's wearing a costume. You look nice, I say, and I mean it, but there's a sadness in my voice that I can't quite hide. Thanks, Mom, he says. Harrison said this is the kind of thing I should be wearing. He said if I'm going to marry into the Sterling family, I need to look like I belong. Look like he belongs. As if the way I raised him, the values I instilled in him, the person he's become, all of that isn't enough. As if he needs to be remade in Harrison's image to be worthy of this life. I don't say anything. I just pour his coffee the way he likes it and watch him drink it standing up, checking his phone every 30 seconds. The clothes are just the beginning. David's vocabulary changes. He starts using words like portfolio and market positioning and brand awareness. Words that sound borrowed from Harrison's world. Words that don't belong in the mouth of a 19-year-old boy who works at Jiffy Lube. He talks about cultivating professional relationships and networking opportunities. When did my son start sounding like a business consultant? He stops coming to the cafe in the mornings before his shift. When I ask him about it, he says that Harrison invited him to the gym. We're lifting together, he says. Harrison says physical fitness is part of professional development. He says you can't build a successful future if you're not taking care of your body. Physical fitness, professional development. When did my son start talking like a self-help book? They go to the gym 3 times a week. David comes home exhausted, his muscles sore, talking about his gains and his progress. He's developing biceps and a confidence that wasn't there before, and I'm not sure if that's a good thing or a bad thing. But the clothes and the gym aren't the worst part. The worst part is what happens at night. One evening in late July, I'm making dinner when I hear David's voice on the phone upstairs. He's in his room with the door closed, but our house is small, and sound travels. He's talking to Emma about the wedding. Yeah, I know you wanted that, but Harrison thinks we should put the extended family toward the back of the venue and keep the important people up front, he says. He has a whole plan about how to arrange the seating so it flows right. What? No, I think he's right. We should trust his judgment on this. He's done this before. I'm stirring pasta sauce, and I have to stop because my hands are shaking. A few minutes later, he says something that makes my breath catch. Yeah, I'll ask Dad about that. Dad. He called Harrison Dad. I put down the wooden spoon. I sit down at the kitchen table. I try to process what I just heard, but I can't. I can't make sense of a world in which my son has given that title to a man he's known for 3 months. I raised that boy. I gave birth to him. I worked 3 jobs to keep a roof over his head. I stayed up at night with him when he was sick. I helped him with his homework. I taught him to ride a bike, to swim, to be kind to people, to stand up for what he believes in. I have 19 years of memories with this person. Harrison Sterling has 3 months. And yet, there it is. Dad. Like it's the most natural thing in the world. I don't go upstairs. I don't confront him. I just finish making dinner pasta with homemade sauce, the way David has always loved it, garlic bread, a salad with tomatoes from my small garden. I set the table. I wait for him to come down. When he does, he sits across from me at the kitchen table. We eat in silence. I can't think of anything to say. What am I supposed to say? Don't call him Dad? That's my job? He doesn't feel like my responsibility anymore. He feels like he's already left. After dinner, he clears his plate and says he has homework. David, I say, and he stops. I love you. He looks at me for a moment. For just a moment, I see a flicker of something in his eyes. Guilt, maybe. Confusion. Something that suggests he hasn't completely disappeared. I love you too, Mom, he says. But he doesn't come back to hug me, the way he used to. He just takes his plate to the sink and goes upstairs. That night, I sit in my room and I think about everything I've lost. Not just my son, though, that's what it feels like, but my voice in his life, my influence, my ability to shape who he becomes. I think about all the decisions I've made as a single mother, the sacrifices, the long hours at work, the saying no to things I wanted so I could say yes to things he needed. And I think about how none of it mattered because one man with a lot of money walked into his life and changed everything in the span of 3 months. I think about standing in the hallway outside my son's room, listening to him call another man Dad, and I feel something break inside me that I'm not sure will ever heal. But I also feel something else, something angry, something that says I didn't come this far to be erased from my own son's life. I didn't survive 20 years of hardship just to watch another man take credit for the person David has become. I'm not done. Not yet. I spend 3 days preparing for my conversation with Harrison. I write down talking points on an index card. I know how pathetic that is, a 42-year-old woman with an index card, but I'm trying to be strategic. I'm trying to be professional. I'm trying to approach this the way I would approach a difficult conversation with a vendor or a customer at the cafe. Calm, rational, prepared. Point 1. David needs to feel like this wedding is his, not Harrison's. Point 2. I want to be included in the planning decisions. Point 3. Money shouldn't be the deciding factor in what kind of wedding they have. I practice saying these things in my mirror. I imagine different responses from Harrison and prepare counter-arguments. I'm doing everything I can to control the outcome of this conversation, even though deep down I know that control is an illusion. I know that Harrison Sterling doesn't care what I think, but I have to try. I call him on a Wednesday afternoon. I ask if he has time to meet. I suggest coffee. Neutral territory, somewhere public where he might be less likely to steamroll me completely. He agrees, which surprises me. He suggests Dutch Bros, a coffee shop on the other side of town. I think he chooses it because it's trendy and upscale, the kind of place that probably has better coffee than my cafe. Maybe he's making a point. Maybe he's not. Either way, I agree. I spend an hour getting ready. I shower. I blow dry my hair. I wear clothes that make me feel professional, nice jeans, a button-up shirt, earrings. I want to look like a woman who has something valuable to contribute, not like a tired single mother begging for scraps. When I get to Dutch Bros, Harrison is already there. He's sitting at a small table by the window with a laptop open in front of him. He's working. Of course he's working. He's too important to just sit and wait for a conversation. He closes the laptop when he sees me. I take that as a good sign. Rebecca, he says, thanks for meeting me. Wait, he said thanks for meeting me, but I asked for this meeting. I called him. Of course, I say. I sit down across from him. I notice he doesn't have a coffee. He's not planning to stay long. I ordered you something, he says, and he pushes a cup toward me. It's a cappuccino. I never told him what I drink. I wonder how he knows, and then I remember David probably told him. Everything about me is probably an open book to Harrison by now. Thank you, I say. I take a sip. It's good. Of course it's good. Harrison probably knows the owner. So, I say. I pull out my index card. It feels small in my hand. Ridiculous. I put it back in my purse. I wanted to talk to you about the wedding. Of course, Harrison says. What about it? I take a breath. I think David needs to feel more involved in the planning, like it's his wedding, not just something being done to him. Harrison nods slowly. He's listening, but I can see in his face that he's already decided my point is invalid. I understand, he says, and we are involving David. I'm taking him shopping, helping him understand the kind of image he needs to project. I'm teaching him about business, about professionalism, about what it means to be part of a family like ours. Part of a family like ours. As if David wasn't already part of a family. As if I didn't build a family with him from scratch. I appreciate that, I say carefully. But I also think David should have input into the actual wedding decisions. The flowers, the food, the seating arrangement. Harrison leans back in his chair. He's not angry. He's not even dismissive. He's patient, like he's explaining something simple to a child who's struggling to understand. Rebecca, he says, everything we're doing is for David. We're giving your son the kind of wedding most people dream about. I would think a mother would be grateful for that. There it is, the implication that I'm not grateful, that I'm ungrateful, that I should be on my knees thanking him for doing what I apparently can't do. I am grateful, I say. My voice sounds small, but I also want to make sure David is happy. David is happy, Harrison says. He says it with such certainty that I almost believe him. Trust me, Rebecca. I know what I'm doing. I open my mouth. I close it. I don't know what to say. Is there anything else? He asks. He's already reaching for his laptop. No, I say. I guess not. Good, he says. He opens his laptop again. I'm glad we could have this conversation. It's important to me that you understand that we're all on the same team here. We all want what's best for David. All on the same team. Except we're not. We're on opposite teams, and he's winning. I drive home in silence. I don't even turn on the radio. I just drive and think about how I let him win without even putting up a fight. I had 3 talking points, and I didn't even get through the first one before I backed down. That night, I sit in my kitchen, and I realize something that should have been obvious all along. I can't win this through diplomacy. I can't win this through being professional or prepared or reasonable. I can't win this by asking nicely for a seat at the table. If I want my voice back in my son's life, I'm going to have to take it. That night, I can't sleep. I lie in bed staring at the ceiling, thinking about what Harrison said. Everything we're doing is for David, as if David is a passive object, something to be shaped and molded and presented to the world. As if David doesn't have thoughts or feelings or desires of his own. Around 2 a.m., I give up on sleep. I get out of bed, pull on a sweatshirt, and go downstairs to my laptop. I open it slowly, like I'm afraid of what I might find. I navigate to the wedding website that Emma created a few weeks ago. It's beautiful. I'll give it that. Sage green color scheme, elegant fonts. Photos from David and Emma's engagement shoot professional photos that Harrison probably paid for. They look happy in the photos. David is smiling. Emma is gazing at him like he's the most important person in the world. I click through the pages. Wedding party, accommodations, registry, timeline. Everything is perfect and organized, and exactly the kind of wedding that a billionaire would throw. Then I get to the page that makes my breath catch. It's titled Family and Wedding Party. I scroll down, looking for my name. I know it's going to be there somewhere. I'm the mother of the groom. Of course my name is there. I find the wedding party listed first. The best man, the groomsmen, the maid of honor, the bridesmaids, all the people who are important enough to stand up at the altar. Then there's the parents of the bride, Harrison and Margaret Sterling. Their names are in a larger font. There's a photo of them together, dressed up, looking like the kind of people who belong in fancy magazines. Below that, there's a section that says additional family members. And there I am, at the bottom of the page, not mother of the groom, not Rebecca Westbrook, just Kirsten, guest. They got my name wrong, spelled it like the Kirsten from the original story instead of Rebecca, and they listed me as a guest at my own son's wedding. Like I won a raffle. Like I'm some random person who happened to receive an invitation. I read it again, and again, hoping that maybe I'm misreading it. Maybe there's another section. Maybe there's a note somewhere explaining that this is temporary, that it's a mistake, that of course I'm not just a guest. But there's nothing, just me, listed after all the people who matter, the people who are important. I close the laptop. I sit in the dark kitchen for a long time. I don't cry. I'm past crying. I'm angry. I'm furious. I'm seething with a rage that I haven't felt in 20 years, not since the day David's father left, not since I realized I was going to have to raise a child alone, not since I made the decision that my life would be about survival and nothing else. I open the laptop again. I find the website editor. I find where the website was created. It was made through a service that allows anyone to build and edit a wedding site. I can see that Emma is the owner, but there's a way to request editing access. Maybe I could. No. I stop myself. I'm not going to sneak around and edit the website. That's not who I am. Instead, I take a screenshot. I save the image of that page with my name listed as guest. I look at it for a long time, and I memorize exactly how it feels to see yourself erased. The next morning, I don't go to the cafe early. I call one of my employees and ask her to open. I need time. I need to sit with this. I sit at my kitchen table with a cup of coffee that tastes like ashes. I think about every sacrifice I've made for David. Every night I worked overtime to pay for his school supplies. Every birthday cake I made from scratch because store-bought was too expensive. Every time I said no to myself so I could say yes to him. And now I'm a guest at his wedding. A guest. I think about calling David. I think about showing him the screenshot and asking him how he could let this happen. But I know that won't work. David is under Harrison's spell. He won't understand why I'm upset. He'll probably apologize, but it won't change anything. Instead, I think about the rehearsal dinner. That's where I'll do it. That's where I'll make sure that everyone knows exactly who I am and what I've done. Not as a guest, not as an afterthought, but as the woman who made David's life possible. I spend the next few days walking around in a fog of determination. I go through the motions of my job. I make coffee. I smile at customers. I cash out the register. But inside, I'm planning. The rehearsal dinner is in 2 weeks. 2 weeks until I'm supposed to smile and be grateful for being included as a guest. 2 weeks until I'm supposed to sit quietly and let Harrison tell everyone about the man he's supposedly created. 2 weeks until I remind everyone, especially David, exactly who brought him into this world. I close my laptop, I finish my coffee, and I wait. The rehearsal dinner is at Bottiglia, an Italian restaurant on Via Brianza that Harrison chose without asking anyone for input. Of course he did. By now, I should expect nothing less. I'm sitting in my car in the parking lot 15 minutes early, gathering my courage. I'm wearing a navy blue dress that I found at a consignment shop on Eastern Avenue. It fits perfectly, which is suspicious because nothing in my life fits perfectly. I figured the universe owed me one. I've been thinking about this dinner for 2 weeks. I've rehearsed what I want to say. I've imagined different versions of how it could go. In some versions, I stay quiet and just observe. In other versions, I stand up and say exactly what I'm thinking. Most versions end with me feeling either brave or foolish, and I'm still not sure which one I'll be by the end of the night. I check my makeup in the rearview mirror. 3 coats of waterproof mascara. Waterproof because I'm a realist. I know that tears might come before this night is over. I pull out my phone and look at the screenshot I took of the wedding website. Kirsten, guest. The misspelled name. The erasure. The reminder of exactly why I'm here. Then I put my phone away, take a deep breath, and walk into the restaurant. The hostess greets me with a smile. She doesn't know who I am. To her, I'm just another guest arriving for another dinner. She has no idea that I'm about to disrupt everything. I'm here for the Sterling rehearsal dinner, I say. She checks her list. Right this way, she says, and she leads me through the restaurant. Bottiglia is the kind of place where everything is expensive. The tables are covered with white tablecloths that probably cost more than I make in a week. There are cloth napkins folded into intricate shapes. The silverware is real silver, not stainless steel. The glasses look like they could break if you breathe on them wrong. There are 24 people at the rehearsal dinner. I recognize some of them, David's friends from school, Emma's aunts and uncles, a few of Harrison's business associates who I've seen mentioned in the wedding planning emails. There are people here who have probably never worked a day in their lives. People who were born into money and think that's normal. People who make decisions about other people's lives without considering the consequences. My table is near the bar. I'm seated next to a woman I don't know and across from a man who introduces himself as one of Harrison's business partners. They're nice enough, but they spend most of dinner talking about real estate investments and property development. They don't seem interested in talking to me. I order a salad and some pasta. The salad is good, the pasta is better. There's garlic butter on the bread that I have been thinking about ever since. I take 4 rolls. Fine. 5. I regret nothing about the bread. I can see the head table from where I'm sitting if I lean to the left and crane my neck. Boyd is at the center, of course. He's wearing a navy blazer that probably cost more than my monthly rent. He's holding court, telling stories that make people laugh. He's completely comfortable, completely at home. Lorraine sits next to him. She's quiet, the way she always is. She rearranges her silverware and smiles at appropriate moments, but she doesn't say much. I wonder what she's thinking. I wonder if she knows something about Harrison that the rest of us don't. I'll find out later that she does. David and Emma sit at the head table too, of course. They look young. They look overwhelmed. David keeps checking his phone like he's waiting for something to rescue him from this dinner. I finish my pasta and wait. Halfway through dinner, Harrison stands up. "A little preview," he announces, laughing. Everyone laughs with him. That's what you do when the man paying for everything makes a joke. You laugh. "I want to talk about what it means to build a young man into the kind of man who can take care of a family," he says. He looks at David. David is glowing. Or maybe he's just terrified. It's hard to tell the difference sometimes. When David came into our lives, I saw a kid with potential. Raw potential, Harrison continues. He pauses for effect. He takes a sip of his wine. He glances at me before his next line, and I swear that he does it on purpose. "Because you can love a child with everything you've got, but love alone doesn't put a roof over their head," he says. Another pause. "Love alone doesn't build a future." The words hang in the air. I feel Tamara's hand on my knee under the table. She's physically holding me in my chair. Later, she'll tell me that her grip was so tight she left a bruise on her own palm. I'm sitting next to her, and her running commentary whispered directly into my left ear is the only thing that keeps me from standing up right then. "Family values?" she whispers when Harrison says the word. "This man put his mother-in-law at the kids' table at Thanksgiving. You told me that yourself." Boyd talks about providing. Tamara mutters, "Providing what? A personality disorder?" Boyd mentions sacrifice. Tamara whispers, "The only thing this man has ever sacrificed is a tea time." I almost inhale a breadstick. But then he says something that I can't laugh through. "I'm also excited to announce that I'm giving David a position at Sterling Development Group," he says, "project coordinator. 41,000 starting salary, plus benefits, plus a mentorship track that will set him up for real leadership opportunities. My son just accepted a job that will put him under Harrison's control 40 hours a week, a job that I didn't know about, a job that was announced at a dinner in front of strangers, the same way everything else in his life has been announced and decided. He didn't tell me. He didn't ask for my input. He just accepted it. I set my fork down very carefully. I cut a piece of bread. I'm trying to stay calm. I'm trying to remember that this is not the moment. The moment is coming, but it's not now. After dinner, we move outside. People are milling around, talking, heading to their cars. David is standing by the valet stand with Tamara and me. He's holding Emma's hand. "I can't do this," I say quietly. "That man talks about David like he built him from scratch, like the first 18 years didn't happen, like I didn't happen." "Mom," David says. I turn around. He's standing maybe 6 feet away, holding Emma's hand, and his voice is tight, not angry, hurt. "Why can't you just be happy for me?" he asks. "Not everything is about you," I add, though he didn't say that. It just comes out because it's what I'm thinking. Not everything is about him. Some of it is about me. Some of it is about the fact that I'm invisible. He walks back inside. Emma follows him, mouthing "I'm sorry" as she goes. I stand under the patio lights, holding a napkin that smells like garlic butter, and I feel something crack inside me that I still don't have a name for. Your kid choosing someone else's world over yours. There's no word for that. Tamara doesn't say anything after David walks away. She just hands me a napkin from her purse. It still smells like garlic butter from Bautilia. She holds my arm, and we stand there in the parking lot under the string of patio lights, 2 women in dresses that cost too much, feeling too much, carrying too much. "Come on," she finally says. Let's go get a drink. We don't go home. We go to a bar on the other side of town, a place where nobody knows us, and nobody cares why we're here. I order a glass of white wine. It's very good wine. I drink it in 4 sips, which is not how you're supposed to drink good wine, but desperate times call for desperate chugging. Tamara is my best friend. She's been my best friend for 19 years, the exact same amount of time I've been a mother. She was there when David was born. She held him in the hospital while I was still recovering from labor. She helped me move into my first apartment with a newborn. She's been the second parent in my son's life in all the ways that matter. He's being controlled, Tamara says. She's on her second cocktail. She's angrier than I am, which is saying something. That man is a puppet master, and your son is a puppet. He's also 19, I say. He's allowed to make his own choices. Is he, though? Tamara asks. Because from where I'm sitting, it looks like Harrison Sterling is making all his choices for him. I don't answer because I know she's right. We sit in that bar for hours. We talk about everything about David, about Harrison, about the wedding, about the unfairness of it all. Tamara tells me stories about things Harrison has said that she overheard. She tells me that he once told David that proper breeding matters, that legacy is important, that David needs to understand where he fits in the hierarchy. Hierarchy. Like people are ranked. Like my son is somewhere on a scale, trying to climb higher. You know what the worst part is? I say at some point. The worst part is that I can't even hate him for it. He genuinely thinks he's helping David. He genuinely thinks love isn't enough. Love is enough, Tamara says. She's had 3 cocktails now, and she's getting emotional. Love is more than enough. Love is everything. Tell that to Harrison Sterling, I say. Eventually, we leave the bar. Tamara drives me home because I've had too much wine. On the drive, I stare out the window and think about the rehearsal dinner. I think about Harrison standing at the head table, talking about building David into a man. I think about the way David looked at him with admiration. I think about the way my son called him Dad. When we get to my house, Tamara walks me to the door. You're going to get through this, she says. Whatever happens, you're going to be okay. What if I'm not? I ask. Then I'll be okay for both of us, she says. That's what best friends do. I hug her, and I'm grateful for her in a way that I can't quite articulate. She's been my rock. She's been the person who believed in me when I didn't believe in myself. The next morning, I wake up with a headache and a clarity that I didn't have before. I know what I have to do. I know that the rehearsal dinner wasn't the moment, it was a warning. It was Harrison showing me his full power, and it was David showing me that he's chosen a side. But there's one more thing I haven't discovered yet. One secret that Harrison is keeping that will change everything. I spend the next week investigating. I do something I'm not proud of. I search through David's room when he's at work. I look through his emails on the computer. I find nothing unusual, no secret bank accounts, no hidden messages. Just a 19-year-old boy living his life, trying to please everyone and failing to please anyone, including himself. But then I find something else. I'm at the cafe one afternoon, sitting in the back office, and I decide to search for Harrison Sterling online. Not in a creepy way, just curious. I want to know more about this man who's taken over my son's life. I find articles about his business, articles about his success, articles about his philanthropy. He donates to charities, supports causes. He seems like a good man on paper. But then I find an article from 10 years ago, a small piece in a local business journal about Sterling Development Group's history. It mentions Harrison's background. It says something that makes me stop reading and go back to the beginning. It says, Sterling, whose mother worked as a housekeeper in Missoula before retiring, credits his early experiences with teaching him the value of hard work. I read it again. His mother was a housekeeper. His mother is alive. I search more. I find a woman named Eleanor Sterling listed as a resident of Missoula. I find a Facebook profile private, but still there with a photo of an older woman with kind eyes. Eleanor Sterling, Harrison's mother. The woman who raised him. The woman who worked as a housekeeper so he could have opportunities. The woman who is, by all accounts, still alive, despite the fact that Harrison told everyone she died in a car accident when he was 19. I sit in my office with my hands shaking. I have found something. I have found the crack in Harrison Sterling's perfect facade. And I know exactly what to do with it. I don't do anything with the information about Eleanor for 3 days. I sit with it. I let it settle inside me like a stone in still water. I think about what it means. I think about the implications. I think about how a man can lie to an entire world about his own mother. I think about what kind of person does that and lives with himself. By the third day, I've made peace with what I'm about to do. The wedding is in 4 days. The ceremony is in 4 days. The reception is in 4 days. This is my last chance to gather information, to prepare, to make sure that when I finally speak, I have everything I need. I can't mess this up. I get one shot at this. I call Eleanor Sterling on a Wednesday afternoon. I don't know what I'm going to say when she answers. I don't have a script prepared. I just know that I need to hear her voice. I need to know if she's really alive. I need to know if she's aware that her own son has told people she's dead. She answers on the third ring. Hello? Her voice is soft, uncertain, like she's not used to getting phone calls. Hi, I say. My name is Rebecca Westbrook. I'm the mother of David. David is marrying Emma Sterling. Emma is Harrison's daughter. I'm rambling. I can hear it in my own voice, the nervousness, the uncertainty. Oh, Eleanor says, and there's something in that one-word recognition, maybe, or resignation, like she's been expecting a call like this. You know about me. I found an article, I say. It mentioned that your son's mother worked as a housekeeper. And then I found you online. You have a Facebook page. You're real. There's a long silence on the other end of the line. I'm worried that maybe I've made a terrible mistake. Maybe Eleanor doesn't want to be found. Maybe she's happy living her life without her son's acknowledgement. Does he tell people I'm dead? Eleanor asks quietly. It's not really a question. It's a statement. She already knows the answer. Yes, I say. He tells people you died in a car accident when he was 19. Eleanor makes a sound that might be a laugh or might be a cry. That would be convenient, she says, for him, and then she talks. For 40 minutes, Eleanor Sterling tells me her life story. She tells me about raising Harrison alone after his father left when he was 3 years old. She tells me about working as a housekeeper for wealthy families who treated her as invisible, who didn't look at her, who made her feel like she was less than human. She tells me about putting herself through school at night while working during the day. She tells me about packing Harrison's lunch every single day for 12 years, peanut butter and honey, because he hated jelly. She tells me about library books and hand-me-down clothes and the sacrifices that nobody ever thanks you for. She tells me about watching him change when he got to college, about the distance that grew between them, about the day he stopped calling, about the emails that became less frequent, about the visits that dwindled from monthly to yearly to never. He sends me money, she says. $1,100 a month deposited directly into my account, but he doesn't call, he doesn't visit, he hasn't seen me in 2 years. 2 years since her son has looked at her face. I'm getting married next month, she continues, to a wonderful man named Carl. We're getting married in my backyard with about 30 people we love, and you know who's not invited? My own son. I feel something shift inside me when she says that. This isn't just about David. This isn't just about my son and my pain. This is about a pattern. This is about a man who is so ashamed of where he came from that he's willing to do anything, lie, manipulate, erase to get away from it. Eleanor, I say carefully, the wedding is in 4 days. Would you want to come? There's a pause. A long pause where I can almost hear her thinking, considering, hoping. To my son's wedding? She asks. The one he's been planning without me? The one where he probably told everyone I died? Yes, I say firmly. As a guest, as a family member, as the woman who made his life possible, you have every right to be there. She doesn't answer right away. I can hear her breathing on the other end of the line. I don't know, she finally says. I don't want to cause trouble. I don't want to ruin his day. You won't cause trouble, I promise her, even though I don't know if it's true. And as for his day, that's his responsibility, not yours. I give her the details. The date, the time, the location. Reflection Bay Golf Club, outside of Missoula. I tell her to bring someone with her, a friend or her new fiancé, someone who can support her through this. I tell her that she belongs there and that she deserves to be there. After I hang up, I sit in my cafe and I feel something I haven't felt in weeks. Hope. A small spark of hope that maybe, just maybe, this is going to work out. That maybe Eleanor will come. That maybe David will see his grandmother at the wedding and something inside him will click. That maybe, finally, the truth will matter more than appearances. The day of the wedding arrives with perfect spring weather and a sky so blue it hurts to look at. I wake up early, I shower, I do my makeup carefully, 3 coats of waterproof mascara because I know what's coming and I know I might need it. I put on the blue dress that I found at the consignment shop. It still fits perfectly, which still feels suspicious. I'm sitting in my car in the parking lot of Reflection Bay Golf Club, looking at the lake glittering in the distance, when my phone buzzes. It's a text from Eleanor. I'm here. Gate B. I'm so nervous. I text back, "You're going to be fine. And you're not alone. I'm here too. You belong here." I take a breath. I look at myself in the rearview mirror. I tell myself that whatever happens in the next few hours, I did the right thing. I did the brave thing. I did the thing that needed to be done. Then I step out of the car and walk toward the golf club, toward the wedding, toward the moment that will change everything. The wedding day dawns with perfect spring weather and a sky so blue it almost hurts to look at. I wake up at 5:47 a.m., 13 minutes before my alarm is set to go off. I lie in bed for those 13 minutes staring at the ceiling, thinking about what this day is going to mean, thinking about whether I'm making a mistake, thinking about whether I have the right to do what I'm planning to do. And then my alarm goes off, and I stop thinking. I start moving. I shower with water that's almost too hot. I stand under the spray and let it wash away the anxiety, the fear, the months of frustration that have been building inside me. I wash my hair, I shave my legs, I do all the things you do when you're trying to prepare yourself for something significant. In my bathroom, I stand in front of the mirror and have a conversation with myself. You are going to go to this wedding, I say to my reflection. You are going to smile. You are going to not cry until at least the ceremony. You are going to eat whatever food they put in front of you. Even if it's one of those tiny plates with a single scallop and a swoosh of something that looks like it was painted on with a toothbrush. And you are going to be happy for your son because you are happy for your son. My reflection does not look convinced. You are, I say again, more firmly this time. You are. I do my makeup carefully. Foundation first. Concealer under my eyes where I haven't slept well in weeks. Blush to bring color back to my cheeks. Eyeshadow in a neutral brown. And then mascara, 3 coats of waterproof mascara because I am a realist and I know that tears are probably coming. The blue dress is hanging on the back of my bedroom door. I bought it at a consignment shop on Eastern Avenue for $80, which is more than I usually spend on clothes, but I needed something that made me feel like I mattered. The dress does that. It's a soft blue, knee-length with cap sleeves that are forgiving. It fits perfectly, which is still suspicious, but I've decided to stop questioning it and just accept the universe's gift. I put on the dress. I put on shoes that are uncomfortable but make my legs look good. I put on earrings that belong to my mother. I tell myself that she would be proud of me for doing what I'm about to do. I'm not sure if that's true, but it helps. The drive to Reflection Bay Golf Club takes about 20 minutes from my house. The lake is on one side of the road, the mountains on the other. It's beautiful in a way that makes you feel small. I drive slowly, taking in the scenery, trying to calm my nerves. When I arrive at the golf club, there are already cars in the parking lot. Expensive cars, Teslas and BMWs and a Range Rover. People are milling around in fancy clothes, looking like they belong here. Looking like they've always belonged here. I park my 2019 Chevy Trax in a spot near the back of the parking lot. I check my makeup in the rearview mirror one more time. I take a deep breath, and then I step out of the car. The venue is stunning. I'll give Harrison that. The ceremony is set up on the lawn overlooking the lake. White chairs lined up in perfect rows like piano keys. A white arch decorated with flowers, the $8,200 flowers that will be dead in 4 days. The kind of wedding that looks like a magazine spread. The kind of wedding where you're almost afraid to sit down because what if you wrinkle the scenery? 171 guests are arriving in waves. Women in heels sinking into the grass. Men tugging at collars. Children running around before someone tells them to sit still. I recognize maybe 15 people. Tamra, obviously, in a coral dress that she described to me as mother of nobody here for chaos. A few of David's friends from school. Lorraine's sister, who I've met once and who called me Christine the entire time, even though my name is Rebecca. I find the seating chart. It's one of those big mirror boards with calligraphy and little cards with names written in fancy script. There's eucalyptus draped around it, enough to sedate a koala. I scan for my name. Table 14. I count the tables. There are 17. Table 14 is near the service corridor, behind a stone column. If I lean left and crane my neck, I might be able to see the head table where David will be sitting. Maybe it's not ideal. Tamara finds her card. Also table 14. We're at table 14 out of 17, she says flatly. Girl, we are one step above the parking attendants. Do we at least get valet? We're near the service corridor, I say. Easy access to more bread. But while I'm standing at the seating chart, trying not to let the number 14 burn a hole through my composure, I notice something. A woman I've never seen before. She's standing near the back of the terrace, alone, holding a small purse with both hands like she's afraid someone might take it. She looks lost, not confused. Lost in the way you look when you're in a room full of people, and none of them are yours. She's wearing a lavender dress, not expensive, not cheap. The kind of dress you find at Kohl's when you're looking for something nice enough. She has white hair, pinned up with a clip that looks like it came from a drugstore. I know exactly who she is. Eleanor. She came. She actually came. I walk over to the event coordinator. A woman with a headset and a clipboard and the energy of someone who has not slept in 48 hours. Excuse me, I say. The woman in the lavender dress near the railing. Do you know who she is? The coordinator checks her list, flips a page. That's Mrs. Mullins, she says. She's Mr. Pritchard's mother. Wait, Mullins. His real name is Mullins. And what table is she at? I ask, even though I think I already know the answer. Table 16, the coordinator says. 2 tables behind you. 2 tables. Behind me. In a room of 17 tables. He put his own mother farther from the head table than a woman he's been humiliating for 8 months. At least I'm near the service corridor. Eleanor is near the emergency exit. I look at Eleanor standing alone in her lavender dress, and I feel something crystallize inside me. Not anger. Something harder than anger. Something that feels like clarity. This is real. This is happening, and I am not going to let this stand. The ceremony begins at 2 o'clock. I sit in my white chair at table 14, behind the stone column, and I watch my son get married. David stands at the altar in a charcoal suit that probably costs more than a month's rent. His hands are shaking slightly. His Seiko watch catches the sunlight. He looks terrified and happy, and like a version of himself that I don't quite recognize. When Emma walks down the aisle, David's face does that thing it does when he's trying not to cry in front of people. That wobble, that fight, and I lose it. Waterproof mascara earns its paycheck that day. But even while I'm crying, I'm watching Boyd standing at the altar like he built this family from the ground up. Chest out, chin up. The patriarch, the man who matters. And in the back row, almost hidden by a floral arrangement, Eleanor Mullins is dabbing her eyes with a tissue, watching her grandson get married from the nosebleed seats. 2 mothers. Both at this wedding because of sons who became men because of us. Both pushed to the margins of a day that literally could not exist without us. After the ceremony, there's a 15-minute break before the reception. Guests mingle. People congratulate David and Emma. I stand with Tamara near the terrace, trying to figure out what to do next. Did you see her? Tamara whispers. Yeah, I say. I saw her. She looks like she might disappear, Tamara says. Like if you blink, she'll just vanish. I watch Eleanor standing alone, adjusting her purse, looking like she doesn't belong. Because according to her son, she doesn't belong. According to him, she's dead. I make a decision. I walk toward her, just walks across the lawn, past people in fancy clothes, past the stone column, toward the woman in the lavender dress. When Eleanor sees me approaching, her eyes widen slightly. She knows who I am. We talked for 40 minutes on the phone. Eleanor, I say, even though I know it's her. Yes, she says softly. You're Rebecca. I am, I say. Can we sit for a minute? We walk to a quiet spot near the railing, away from the crowds. There's a bench, one of those decorative benches that hotels put in random places, and we sit. Eleanor holds her purse with both hands again. I hold my clutch with the speech inside it. Thank you for coming, I say. I wasn't sure I should, Eleanor says, but your phone call. It made me feel like maybe I had a right to be here, like maybe it wasn't wrong to want to see my grandson get married. You have every right, I say. You gave him life. You raised him. Eleanor nods slowly. He was such a sweet boy, she says. When he was little, he would hold my hand when we walked. He would tell me he was going to take care of me when he grew up. He was going to buy me a house, and we would live together, and I would never have to work again. Tears stream down her face now. She doesn't wipe them away. But then he got older, she continues. He started to feel ashamed. He would tell me not to tell his friends what I did for work. He would say things like, "Mom, you're embarrassing." And I understood. I really did. I don't blame him for wanting more. But I didn't think he would erase me. I didn't think my own son would tell the world I was dead. I reach over and squeeze her hand. It's thin, cold, strong in the way that hands get when they've spent decades doing physical labor. Eleanor, I say, I need to tell you something. I'm planning to say something at the reception. Something about Harrison, about the truth, and I wanted you to know beforehand. She looks at me with eyes that have seen a lot of pain, but still have hope in them. What are you going to do? She asks. I'm going to tell everyone, I say. I'm going to tell them that your son told the world you died when you're very much alive, and I'm going to tell them why he did it. Because I think people need to know the truth about who they're celebrating. Eleanor is quiet for a long moment. I don't want to ruin his day, she finally says. It's the same thing she said on the phone. Eleanor, I say gently, he ruined his own day the moment he decided to be ashamed of you. What I'm doing, that's not ruining anything. That's just telling the truth. We sit in silence for a few more minutes. The reception is starting. We can hear the sounds of people moving inside, finding their tables, settling in for dinner. Okay, Eleanor finally says. Okay. Tell the truth. I'm tired of living a lie. I squeeze her hand one more time, and then I stand up. I look back at her, sitting alone on that bench, and I feel a surge of something that I can't quite name. Strength, maybe, or purpose, or the knowledge that I'm about to do something that matters. I walk back toward the reception, toward my table, toward the moment that's about to change everything. Tamra catches my eye as I sit down. She doesn't ask what I was doing. She just nods, like she understands, like she's been waiting for this moment as much as I have. Dinner is served. Salmon with citrus reduction. Asparagus arranged on the plate with the precision of a crime scene diagram. I eat it because I need to do something with my hands. I don't taste it. I'm waiting. The reception is beautiful in the way that expensive things are beautiful. There are flowers everywhere, those $8,200 flowers that have already started to wilt slightly in the afternoon heat. There are white linens on every table. There are place cards with names written in calligraphy. There are centerpieces that probably cost more than my entire monthly budget. I sit at table 14 and watch David and Emma at the head table. They look exhausted already, and the reception has barely started. They smile when people look at them. They kiss when someone clinks their glass. They perform the role of newlyweds the way they've been trained to do. Dinner is served. The salmon is actually good. The asparagus is arranged with such precision that it looks almost too beautiful to eat. I eat it anyway. I need to do something with my hands. At the head table, Boyd is holding court. He's telling stories. He's laughing his big, confident laugh. He's completely comfortable. He's king of this domain. Lorraine sits next to him, quiet and composed, rearranging her silverware the way people do when they're listening very carefully and saying nothing. After dinner, the best man stands up to give his toast. He tells stories about David that I've never heard before. Stories about high school, about college, about the time David accidentally drove a forklift into a fence at Jiffy Lube. Everyone laughs. It's a good toast. It's warm and funny and real. Then the maid of honor stands up. She talks about Emma and David's relationship. She talks about the first time she met David and how she knew immediately that Emma had found the right person. She talks about their love in a way that makes it sound like something precious and real. When she sits down, I check my phone. It's 6:47 p.m. The sun is starting to set. The light is getting golden. It's the kind of light that photographers love. And then Boyd stands up. He taps his champagne glass with a fork. The sound travels across the room. Everyone goes quiet. Every fork goes down. Every conversation dies. The room turns to him like sunflowers to the sun because that's what money does. It makes people turn. I want to thank everyone for being here tonight, he says. He smiles. That smile. This has been an incredible year watching these two young people find each other, watching David grow into the man he's becoming. I feel Tamara's hand find my knee under the table. I think a lot about family values, Boyd continues, about what it means to really provide for the people you love, not just emotionally, though that matters, of course. He pauses, he sips his champagne, but to give them a foundation, a future, something solid under their feet. I can feel my hands going cold. David, you might have come from humble beginnings, he says, turning to my son, but son, you've got a real family now. Laughter. Polite, country club laughter. The kind that comes from people who don't realize they're laughing at someone. A few people glance at me, quick, darting glances, the kind where they turn back before you can make eye contact. Seriously, though, Boyd says. He puts one hand on David's shoulder. They say it takes a village, and sometimes he lets the sentence hang. He doesn't finish it. He doesn't have to. 171 people fill in the blank themselves. Sometimes the village has to step in because the village wasn't enough. I'm honored to be here, Boyd concludes, and I'm honored to be a part of David's life in this new way. He sits down. He raises his glass. People clink. People cheer. And I stand up. I don't do it dramatically. I don't slam my hands on the table. I just push my chair back quietly and I stand. I pick up my Clutch the Clutch with the 3-page speech that I wrote 4 months ago and never read out loud. Excuse me, I say. My voice is quiet. I need to say something. I walk between tables, past the stone column, past the service corridor, toward the microphone stand that was used for the toasts. The room is silent now, not the polite silence of Boyd's toast, the shocked silence, the kind where forks freeze halfway to mouths and conversations die mid-syllable. I pick up the microphone. It's warm in my hand. My name is Rebecca Westbrook, I say. My voice comes through the speakers clear and strong. I'm David's mother. I can see Boyd's face change. I can see the color drain from it. I raised my son alone, I say. For 19 years. Just me. His father left when he was 14 months old, and I never once asked anyone for help with his life because that was my job. That was my responsibility. I look at David. He's staring at me like he doesn't recognize me. I taught him to ride a bike in the parking lot of our apartment complex, I continue. I made his lunches. I went to his school events. I stayed up at night when he was sick. I worked 3 jobs at different points so that he would have what he needed. My voice is shaking now. I let it shake. And I'm proud of him. I'm so proud of the man he's become. But that man he didn't become because of money. He didn't become because of a fancy venue or expensive clothes or anyone telling him he needed to be remade. I look at Boyd directly. He became because he was loved, because his mother loved him so much that she would do anything for him. The room is completely silent now. So when someone stands up and talks about needing a real family, I say it hurts. It hurts because what we had, what David and I had, was real. It was just small. It was just the two of us. But it was real. I take a breath. And there's one more thing, I say. There's something you all should know about the person who just spoke. His name isn't actually Pritchard, I say into the microphone. The room goes completely still. Even the ice in the glasses stops clinking. Even the servers pause mid-step. Every single person in that room is listening to me. His name is Boyd Mullins, and his mother is alive. I point toward the back of the room where Eleanor is standing near the entrance. She's still holding her purse with both hands, but she's standing now. She's not hiding anymore. She's visible. That woman right there in the lavender dress, I say clearly, that's Eleanor Mullins. That's Boyd's mother. She raised him alone, the way I raised my son. She worked as a housekeeper for wealthy families. She sacrificed everything for him. And he told everyone she was dead. The room erupts, not in anger, in shock, in confusion, in the sound of people processing something they didn't expect to hear. Heads turn, hundreds of heads turning toward Eleanor. People point. People whisper. Eleanor stands there with tears streaming down her face, and for the first time tonight, she looks visible. She looks real. She looks like someone who matters. Boyd's face is the color of old milk. His hands are shaking. He stands up like he's going to say something, and then he sits back down. He doesn't know what to say. He doesn't have a prepared response for this. Boyd came into David's life 3 months ago. I continue, my voice growing stronger. Just 3 months. And in that time, he's convinced my son that I'm not enough. That love isn't enough, that he needs real family, real support, real foundation. I look directly at Boyd. But here's what nobody seems to understand, I say. Boyd had a real family. He had a mother who loved him so much that she worked on her hands and knees for wealthy people who treated her like she was invisible. She was a housekeeper. She folded other people's sheets so her son could have clean ones. And the moment he got money, the moment he got successful, he erased her from his life. The room is completely silent now. The kind of silence that feels heavy. He sends his mother $1,100 a month, I say. $1,100. But he doesn't call. He doesn't visit. He hasn't seen her in 2 years. He told the world she was dead because she embarrassed him. Because where she came from wasn't good enough. Because she wasn't the right kind of mother. I feel tears on my face now, but I don't stop. And he looked at my son and he said, "You need real family now. Love alone isn't enough." But do you know what love is? Love is a woman working as a housekeeper so her son can go to college. Love is packing your child's lunch every single day for 12 years. Love is sacrificing your own dreams so your child can have theirs. I look at Eleanor. That's real, I say. That's the realest thing there is. Lorraine stands up. Everyone stops and watches her. She's quiet, Lorraine. Smile and rearrange silverware, Lorraine. The woman who's been sitting next to Boyd for years, listening to him, enabling him. She's right, Lorraine says. Her voice is soft but clear. And I'm tired. Everyone leans forward. I've known about Eleanor for years, Lorraine continues. I knew that Boyd's mother was alive. I knew that he was lying to everyone. And I didn't say anything because I was afraid. I was afraid of disappointing him. I was afraid of what would happen if I spoke up. She looks at Boyd, and there's something in her expression that's both sad and determined. I should have said something a long time ago, she says. I should have stood up for Eleanor the first time Boyd lied about her. I should have told him it was wrong. But I didn't. I was complicit. And I'm sorry. I'm sorry to Eleanor. And I'm sorry to Rebecca. And I'm sorry to David. She sits back down, and I can see her shoulders shaking. The room is chaos and silence at the same time. People are talking, but nobody's really talking. They're just processing. They're just trying to make sense of what's happening. I look at David one more time. My son. The boy I raised. The man he's becoming. I didn't come here to ruin your wedding, I say. I didn't come here to humiliate anyone or to hurt anyone. I came here to tell the truth. Because you deserve to know who this man really is. And because Eleanor deserves to be remembered. Not erased. Not forgotten. Remembered. I put the microphone down. I step away from the stand. For a moment, nothing happens. And then David does something I didn't expect. He stands up. He pushes back his chair. The sound of it scraping against the floor is the loudest thing in the room. He looks at Boyd for a long moment, and then he turns away. He walks toward the back of the room. Not to Boyd, not to Lorraine, not to Emma, who's reaching for his arm. He walks toward Eleanor, toward the woman in the lavender dress who raised the man who became his father-in-law's mother. He stands in front of her. I'm David, he says. His voice is shaking. His chin is doing that wobble thing again. I'm sorry. I'm so sorry that we haven't met before. Eleanor reaches up and cups his face with both hands. Her hands are thin and old and weathered from decades of work. You look just like him, she whispers. When he was good. And then David pulls her into his arms and holds on. He holds on like he's holding on to something precious, like he's holding on to the truth. And Eleanor holds on too. I watch my son finally see what was right in front of him the whole time. I watch him recognize that love, real love, looks like a housekeeper working so her son can have opportunities. I watch Boyd realize that he's lost. I watch Lorraine nod slightly, like maybe she can finally breathe. And I feel something settle inside me. Something that feels like peace. Boyd doesn't try to defend himself. He doesn't stand up and give some explanation about how he was protecting his family or how he was trying to move past his difficult childhood. He doesn't say anything at all. He just sits there at the head table, his champagne glass still in his hand, his face slowly returning to its normal color, and he realizes that he is lost. After a few moments of stunned silence, he picks up his jacket from the back of his chair. He buttons one button, the wrong button, and he walks out. He walks past the service corridor, past table 14 where Tamara and I are sitting, past the stone column, toward the parking lot. Several guests watch him go. Nobody follows. The reception doesn't know what to do with itself. For a moment, everything stops. The waiters pause mid-step. The band doesn't know if they should keep playing. People don't know if they should applaud or be horrified or just sit in stunned silence. And then Emma does something that surprises everyone. She stands up and walks toward David and Eleanor. She doesn't hesitate. She doesn't second-guess herself. She just walks toward them with her hand outstretched. "Hi," she says to Eleanor. "I'm Emma. I'm so glad you're here." And she hugs Eleanor. She just pulls this woman she's never met into her arms, and she holds on. That's when the room seems to come back to life. That's when people start to move again. That's when I realize that maybe, just maybe, this is going to be okay. Tamara squeezes my hand under the table. "You did it," she whispers. "You actually did it." "We did it," I correct her. "I couldn't have done this without you." David comes to find me after Emma has settled Eleanor at a new table, not table 16 anymore, but table 14, with me and Tamara and the elderly couple who were sleeping through dinner earlier. They're awake now. They're asking Eleanor questions. They're treating her like she matters. "Mom," David says. He looks shell-shocked. His eyes are red from crying. "Hi, buddy," I say. I don't know what to say," he says. "You don't have to say anything," I tell him. "You just have to be honest with yourself about what happened." He nods slowly. He looks exhausted. He looks like a 19-year-old boy who just realized that the man he thought would save him was actually trying to use him. "I'm sorry," he says, "for everything. For calling him Dad. For letting him push you away. For being so stupid." "You're not stupid," I say. "You're young. You wanted to be accepted. That's not stupid. That's human." He sits down next to me, and we don't talk for a while. We just sit together, mother and son, watching the reception continue around us. Lorraine comes to talk to Eleanor at some point during the evening. They sit together for a long time, talking quietly. I don't know what they're saying, but I can see Lorraine crying. I can see Eleanor reaching over and squeezing her hand. Later, I learn that Lorraine has been planning to leave Boyd for a long time. She was just waiting for the right moment. Apparently, my speech was that moment. The band plays. Some people dance. Some people leave early, uncomfortable with the drama that's unfolded. Some people stay late, energized by the scandal, wanting to be part of the story. Eunice Eleanor, I remind myself, that's her real name, sits with me at table 14 for most of the night. Tamara brings her plate after plate of food. She keeps saying, "You eat that. You've earned it. You've earned 7 of them." Eleanor laughs. A real laugh. Surprised like she didn't expect to make that sound tonight. "I like your friend," she says to me. "Everybody does," Tamara says, pointing a fork at Eleanor like it's a medical prescription. "Except the people who should be afraid of me. And I'm fine with that arrangement." The elderly couple from earlier, Herb and Dorothy, take Eleanor under their wing. Dorothy holds her hand. Herb tells her stories about his own mother. By the end of the night, Eleanor looks less like a woman who's been erased and more like a woman who's been found. At the end of the night, David and Emma cut the cake. They feed each other a slice. They kiss. They smile for the photographer. But their smiles are different now. They're real. They're not performing anymore. As David and Emma get ready to leave for their honeymoon, Bora Bora, paid for by Boyd, a trip that now feels complicated and strange, David pulls me aside. "Thank you for today," he says. "Thank you for telling the truth. Thank you for giving me the chance to know my grandmother." "She's your grandmother," I say. "You always had the chance. You just needed to see it." He hugs me. He holds on longer than usual. And I hold on too. Later, after most of the guests have left, after the cleanup crew has started breaking down the reception, I sit with Eleanor and Tamara on the terrace overlooking the lake. The sun has set. The sky is turning purple and pink. The water is calm. The flowers, those $8,200 flowers, are drooping slightly, their time almost over. "You know what the funny thing is?" Eleanor says. "I spent 2 years thinking my son was ashamed of me. But the truth is, I was never the problem. He was always running from himself. People who are loudest about where you come from," I say, "are usually running the hardest from where they come from." Eleanor nods. "That's true," she says. "That's very true." Tamara raises her glass of wine. To mothers who raise their sons right, she says. To the real families. To the ones built on love, not money. We clink glasses. Eleanor, Tamara, and me. 3 women at a wedding that started as a disaster and ended as a beginning. I drive home alone that night. David and Emma are heading to the airport for their flight to Bora Bora. Eleanor is staying with Tamara for a few nights. They've already made plans to go shopping and get pedicures and do all the things that friends do. Tamara hugged me goodbye and said, "You did good today, Rebecca. Real good." The house is quiet when I arrive. Too quiet. The kind of quiet that comes from a place that's used to being lived in by 2 people and is suddenly empty. I sit at my kitchen table with a cup of tea that I don't drink. I think about the day. I think about standing at that microphone. I think about the moment when David walked toward Eleanor instead of toward Boyd. I think about how courage isn't always the absence of fear. Sometimes courage is just doing what needs to be done even though your hands are shaking. I pull the 3-page speech out of my clutch, the one I wrote over 4 months, the one with coffee stains on page 2, the one with crossed out lines and rewrites and all the words I spent so long crafting. I read it again. It's a good speech. It's warm. It's grateful. It talks about teaching David to ride a bike. It talks about the time he tried to make me breakfast for Mother's Day when he was 9 and set off the smoke alarm with a frozen waffle. It talks about watching him walk across the stage at graduation and knowing that every exhausted, broke, lonely night had been worth it. It's beautiful, that speech. But it's not what needed to be said. What needed to be said was simpler. What needed to be said was the truth. And the truth doesn't come in 3 carefully drafted pages. The truth comes in a shaking voice and a cracked sentence and a woman who has finally had enough. I fold the speech back into its square. The creases are soft now, like fabric. I put it in my nightstand drawer where it's been living for months. It belongs there. Not on a microphone, not out loud, but kept, remembered, a reminder of what I was going to say before I decided to say what actually needed to be said instead. The next morning, I wake up and I go to work. I open the cafe at 5:15 a.m., just like I always do. I flip on the lights. The smell hits me. Coffee beans, butter from yesterday's pastries, the ghost of cinnamon. I've never gotten tired of that smell. Frank comes in at 5:45 a.m. He orders his black coffee. Margaret comes in at 6 a.m. I pour her a medium vanilla latte without asking. The Kowalski brothers arrive at 6:15 a.m. and they sit at the corner table and argue about nothing for 45 minutes. These are my people, the people who know me, the people who didn't judge me for what happened at the wedding. Most of them didn't even know about the wedding until they saw it on the news. Montana is small, news travels fast, but they just treat me the same way they always have. Like I'm Rebecca, like I'm the woman who makes their coffee and remembers how they like it and treats them like they matter. That means something. David calls me 3 days into his honeymoon. "Hi, Mom," he says. He's calling from Bora Bora, from some expensive resort that Boyd paid for, from a life that suddenly feels very complicated. "Hi, buddy," I say. "How's paradise?" "It's beautiful," he says, "but I've been thinking about something." "What's that?" "I want to get to know Eleanor," he says. "I want to spend time with her. I want to hear her stories. I want to know about my family." "I think that's a great idea," I say. "And I want to apologize to you," he continues, "for everything. For letting Boyd convince me that you weren't enough, for calling him Dad, for not defending you when he said those things." "You don't have to apologize," I say. "You were young. You wanted to belong." "Still," he says, "I'm sorry. And I'm grateful. I'm grateful that you told the truth, even though it was scary." After we hang up, I sit at the cafe counter with a cup of coffee, and I cry. Not sad tears, relief tears. The kind of tears that come when you've been holding something in for so long and finally you get to let it out. A customer comes in, someone I don't recognize, and orders a cappuccino. I make it perfect. I hand it to her with a smile. "Have a good day," I say. "You too," she says. "You seem happy." "I am," I say. And I realize that it's true. I am happy. Not because everything is perfect. Not because my son suddenly understands everything, or because his father-in-law has disappeared from our lives, or because the world has changed in any fundamental way. I'm happy because I stood up, because I told the truth, because I refused to be invisible. I'm happy because I'm a mother who raised her son with nothing but love and hard work, and that turned out to be enough. More than enough. Everything. Later that week, Eleanor comes into the cafe. She's wearing a different dress, not lavender this time, but a soft pink that brings out the color in her cheeks. She looks different. She looks like someone who's been found. "Hi, Rebecca," she says. She sits at the counter. "Hi, Eleanor," I say. "Coffee?" "Please," she says. "Black, like my son used to like it." I pour her a cup of our best dark roast. I remember Boyd ordering that same coffee at this counter, looking past me like I was invisible. Eleanor takes a sip and smiles. "This is good," she says. "This is really good." And we sit together, two single mothers who raised their sons alone, who were pushed to the margins, who finally stood up and refused to be erased. And for the first time in a long time, I feel like maybe everything is going to be okay. 3 months after the wedding, Eleanor and I are sitting on my porch on a Sunday afternoon. The weather is warm, the sun is bright. We have glasses of lemonade that Eleanor made, real lemonade, not the powder kind, with fresh lemons and just the right amount of sugar. We're watching the world go by, not talking much, just being together in the way that people who've been through something significant together can be. Eleanor has moved to Missoula permanently. She and Carl got married at City Hall with just a few close friends. No big venue, no $8,000 flowers. Just love and commitment, and two people who've decided to build a life together. She works part-time at a library now. She shelves books and helps patrons find what they're looking for. She tells me it's the happiest she's been in years. David and Emma have moved into a small house on the edge of town. David quit his job at Sterling Development Group. He didn't quit in a dramatic way. He just told Boyd that he needed to figure out his own path, that he was going back to school to study at environmental science, that he was grateful for the opportunities, but that he needed to be his own person. Boyd didn't argue. He just transferred the final paycheck and sent a brief email saying that he hoped David would reconsider. David didn't reconsider. Emma teaches 3rd grade at a public school. She loves it. She comes home every day talking about her students and their stories and the progress they're making. She's the kind of teacher who changes lives. David volunteers at a local nonprofit that helps at-risk youth. He mentors teenagers who don't have positive male role models in their lives. He teaches them that love and hard work are enough, that you don't need money or status or a fancy background to matter. He's learned that lesson from me. Lorraine left Boyd 2 months after the wedding. She moved to Portland to be closer to her sister. She sends me a Christmas card every year with a handwritten note thanking me for giving her the courage to leave. She's dating a man who teaches pottery and who treats her like she matters. Boyd still lives in Montana, but we don't see him. He's become more isolated. His business is still thriving, but the people around him are fewer and fewer. People who know the truth about him have a hard time respecting him. I don't hate him. Hate takes too much energy. But I don't forgive him either. Forgiveness is something he has to earn, and he hasn't even tried. "Do you ever regret it?" Eleanor asks me one afternoon. "Regret what?" I ask. "Telling the truth. Publicly. In front of everyone. I think about it. I think about the moment when I stood at that microphone. I think about the risk I took. I think about how it could have gone wrong in so many ways. No, I say, I don't regret it. It was the right thing to do." "Even though it hurt people?" Eleanor asks. "It hurt the right people," I say, "and it helped the people who needed to be helped." Eleanor nods. She takes a sip of her lemonade. "I've been thinking about writing something," she says. "A book, about my life, about raising Boyd alone, about watching him become someone I didn't recognize, about being erased." "That's a good idea," I say. "The world needs to hear that story." "Will you help me?" she asks. "Of course I will," I say. And I mean it. David and Emma visit Eleanor every Sunday for dinner. They listen to her stories. They ask her questions. They treat her like the most important person in the room, because to them, she is. One Sunday, David brings his photo album from childhood. He and Eleanor go through it together, and Eleanor cries looking at pictures of her grandson as a baby, as a toddler, as a kid. She missed so much time. But she's making up for it now. "He looks like you," Emma says to Eleanor, pointing at a picture of David at age 5. "He looks like his mother," Eleanor says, squeezing my hand. "He has her strength." The cafe is busier now. Word got around about what happened at the wedding, and people started coming in out of curiosity. But they stayed because the coffee is good, and because I treat everyone like they matter. I've had 3 job offers from bigger places, places with more money and more prestige. I turned them all down. This cafe is mine. This community is mine. These people are mine. Frank still comes in at 5:45 a.m. Margaret still gets her medium vanilla latte. The Kowalski brothers still argue at the corner table. But now there are new people too. Teenagers who need a safe place to study, elderly people who need a warm place to sit, single parents, like I was, who need a community. I've become the kind of place where people know they matter, where their coffee is made just the way they like it, where they're seen. One morning, a woman comes in with her young son, maybe 2 years old. She looks exhausted. She looks like I did 20 years ago, like a woman carrying the weight of the world on her shoulders. Medium vanilla latte? I ask, even though she hasn't ordered yet. She looks surprised. How did you know? Lucky guess, I say. And a hot chocolate for your son? Yes, she says, and tears come to her eyes. Thank you. I make her drinks. I don't charge her for the chocolate. I just hand her the cup and I say, "You're doing a good job. You know that, right? You matter." She cries then. Right there in my cafe, she cries because someone finally told her what she needed to hear. That could have been me. That could have been any of us. Later that evening, I'm closing up the cafe. I'm wiping down the counter. I'm thinking about the day. I'm thinking about that woman and her son. I pull out the photograph that Eleanor gave me. It's a picture of the two of us sitting on my porch, glasses of lemonade in our hands, smiling at the camera. Tamara took it. It's one of my favorite pictures now. Two mothers. Two women who raised their sons alone. Two women who were pushed to the margins and refused to stay there. I tape it up on the wall behind the counter, next to the register, right where I can see it every single day. And I think about what Eleanor said to David at the wedding. You look just like him, when he was good. I think about what that means. I think about how goodness isn't something that comes from money or status or a fancy background. Goodness comes from love. Goodness comes from sacrifice. Goodness comes from a mother who wakes up at 4:30 a.m. and works herself to exhaustion because her child matters more than her comfort. That's where David's goodness comes from. And I'm proud of him for finally seeing that. I'm proud of me for finally making sure he had to see it. I lock up the cafe and drive home through the Montana evening. The sun is setting over the mountains. The sky is painted in shades of orange and pink and gold. And I think about the journey that brought me here. The single nights, the long shifts, the years of sacrifice, the moment when I stood at that microphone and told the truth. And I think it was worth it, all of it. Every exhausting, broke, lonely moment was worth it. Because my son knows that he matters. My son knows that love is enough. My son knows that his mother is enough. And that's everything.